Look at the United States today, a glowing grid of infrastructure and rigid political lines. But if we reverse the clock, stripping away the highways and modern borders, we reveal a very different North American landmass. This map of the Great Lakes region shows the sophisticated territorial reach of the Iroquois Confederacy, or Five Nations. Before any European explorer set foot here, the continent was home to diverse societies that operated vast, borderless trade networks and centralized democratic governments. The documented voyages of Christopher Columbus acted as the catalyst for a total continental shift. Beyond the physical arrival of Spanish and Portuguese explorers, European contact introduced foreign diseases to which the native populations had no immunity, wiping out an estimated 90% of the people. In the wake of this devastation, European powers began carving the map into a patchwork of competing colonies. The Spanish, French, Dutch, and English weren't building a unified nation. They were establishing outposts for resource extraction, from Virginia tobacco to Hudson River beaver furs. This era turned the continent into a battleground of shifting claims. As these empires pushed deeper into the interior to secure trapping grounds and ports, they created a landscape of constant friction, where the economic demands of the colonies began to outpace the control of the monarchs who claimed them. By the mid-18th century, Britain emerged from the 7 Years' War with massive territory and massive debts. To pay for the conflict, the British government imposed heavy taxes on the 13 colonies, including the Stamp Act on documents and magazines. When the British government ignored colonial protests against taxation without representation, local militias began arming. By 1775, these Minutemen were engaging professional British troops in open skirmishes at Lexington and Concord, starting a full-scale war. The revolution reached its turning point at Saratoga, a victory that convinced France and Spain to provide the weapons and naval support the Americans lacked. This alliance eventually forced the British surrender at Yorktown in 1781. This document, beginning with "We the People," established the new nation's system of government and fundamental laws. By 1783, the Treaty of Paris officially recognized the United States, pushing its first international border all the way west to the Mississippi River. This victory created a fragile string of states along the Atlantic. The next challenge for the new Constitution was whether this government could maintain order while settlers pushed past the Mississippi into the vast wilderness beyond. By the 1840s, a core ideology took hold: manifest destiny. It was the belief that the United States was destined to expand its borders across the entire continent to the Pacific Ocean. This map shows the result of the 1803 Louisiana Purchase. For $15 million, the United States bought a massive shaded region from France, doubling the nation's size in a single transaction. Reaching the Pacific came at a heavy cost. It required a war with Mexico to secure California, and the forced, deadly relocation of Native American tribes, an event known as the Trail of Tears, where thousands died from disease and starvation. This map of 1860 reveals a nation breaking apart. As new territories became states, a conflict erupted over their labor systems. The North relied on industrialized free labor, while the South's economy depended entirely on agricultural slave labor. When the Southern states seceded and attacked Fort Sumter, the American Civil War began. This was a fully industrialized conflict, utilizing railways and telegrams to move troops and information at a scale never seen before. President Abraham Lincoln oversaw the Union victory and issued the Emancipation Proclamation, an executive order that gave freedom to over 3 million enslaved people. This was followed by the 13th Amendment, which legally abolished slavery across every state. The Civil War ended the era of a fractured map. By 1865, the United States had transitioned into a singular, industrialized power with a unified economic system, ready to project its influence far beyond its own coastline. At the turn of the 20th century, the U.S. became an economic behemoth. Technological leaps like mass production, symbolized by the Ford Model T, allowed the American economy to outpace its European rivals. The U.S. initially remained neutral during World War I, but attacks on merchant shipping and threats to its borders eventually forced a declaration of war. By June 1917, American infantry were arriving in Europe, the first time the nation had projected its military manpower across the Atlantic. Following the 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor, the U.S. mobilized on a global scale. This required a massive deployment of resources to fight simultaneously across two distinct theaters, the Pacific and Europe. The war concluded with the rapid development and use of atomic weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This Manhattan Project research created a weapon that could devastate entire regions, fundamentally changing the nature of global military power. Emerging from World War II with an intact industrial base, the United States was no longer just a continental power. It was now the primary node of a global military and economic network. During the Cold War, the struggle for dominance shifted to ideology. The Berlin Wall became the physical symbol of this division, as the US competed with the Soviet Union for influence through espionage and proxy wars across the globe. This competition pushed the American map into orbit. In 1969, the Apollo 11 mission successfully landed the first humans on the moon, expanding the nation's reach beyond Earth's atmosphere. While projecting power abroad, the nation faced an internal struggle for equality. The civil rights movement, led by figures like Martin Luther King Jr., utilized nonviolent protest to challenge segregation and ensure that constitutional rights applied to all citizens. The modern era was defined by the events of September 11. These attacks forced the United States to pivot from traditional military strategy toward a new paradigm of asymmetrical warfare against borderless threats. Today, the United States remains a leading world power, defined by its massive economy and a military that projects far beyond its own coastlines. It is a map that is never static, but rather the ongoing result of a centuries-long drive to redraw its place in the world.